Welcome back to Equal Time Soccer. I'm Mark Privratsky. I'm here with my co-host Dani Foxhoven Young. I'm here at the world famous Blackheart Bar. We got the fruit fly caps on the bottles, if anyone's noticing. It's the season. We got to be prepped. We're ready. Thank you to the Blackheart for letting
I
me.
appreciate that. That's it. Yeah, you guys are doing your job there.
We do our best. We do our best.
Yeah.
But Dani, we're joining pregame today because we're playing Dutch Lions at home. But first, we want to dig into a game that I think probably the team needed on Sunday. It was a tough 1-0 win. A little different after Wednesday's game was 10-0. You know, I was talking to fans at the bar. I was like talking to fans, online. And we're all kind of like, oh, the competitive balance, like, is it too easy? And we're right back down to level. It was a tough win at Rochester.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many pieces to this, and this is the fun part about a league. Like, this is why I think people follow a season-long league, right? Because there's like these games that just can fluctuate, and you never know what team you're going to get, especially in leagues where you're playing teams multiple times, because maybe the first time they come out, they're not as prepared. They don't know what to expect. Rochester itself, that was like their brand new club, their brand new team, and they got Aurora right off the bat, so they didn't know what to expect. Now the second time they play Aurora, they come back, they've made adjustments, they've had a little bit more like minutes under their legs, and so I think it made a huge difference. They definitely made game adjustments. They compacted defensively, basically had 10 players behind the ball at all times, and it worked. I mean, it made it really, really difficult for Aurora to score, and even to get like creative chances on goal. Like, obviously in the 10-0 game before that, it was like Aurora was untouchable. They almost were clinical in the final third. Nothing could go wrong. Everything they did was like ending in some sort of a shot on goal. And with Rochester, it's almost like the complete opposite. So honestly, I think it was fun. It was good to see that Aurora like had a little grit in them to pull it out, to still get a 1-0 lead, win, and walk away with 3 points still.
Yeah, the pros, I mean, the team has to get a little bit of balanced mindset from that, because you don't really grow a lot winning, even 5-0 all the time. You have to have some challenges and adversity together. And I mean, Rochester did really well defensively, and equally, I think we had some struggles, but you have to give them some credit for it. You could say they got the equal time bump, Dani, because the first game they didn't have either of the equal time guests playing, and maybe it's that they're also good veteran players, but they had Lindsey Birch back in defense. They had Anna Pacheco back in midfield, playing through a slight fracture in her leg, because it's a not get worse, play through the pain, and she did. And so they got the equal time bump. They also got the Aurora fan bump. I was talking to Dani. I was down there in person. It was a lot of fun. Credit to the Ravon Tillette members who were doing all the chants they normally would do. And then by the way, just looking around, like, it was not just, the dorks I see at the bar and like who are in the Ravon Tillette. Like, there was 500 people, and people from the team were saying, I don't recognize all these fans. It's not like it's there were parents. Shout out to Maya Hansen's parents with a new puppy.
Gotta bring the pup along.
I think Ella, very adorable puppy.
Yeah.
But no, we didn't recognize all the fans. It wasn't just like the people insular to so that was really cool, and a nice little contribution to the Rochester FC attendance revenue for.
Heck yeah, I love that. I mean, that's like speaking to the supporters, the community that actually want to see this like thrive and do well. It's not just a one-time thing. So I love to see that. Yeah, I mean, I think it is really interesting. Like the league is growing, right? That's what this showed. Like, the league is growing, attention is there. It's exciting.
Yeah, and Rochester really, they almost had no shots on goal. They had one literal shot on the top of the frame at the very end. Coach Lukic said, and I think she was probably correct, that Groutman had it covered in goal. It hit the post, and if it would have been on frame, I think she probably would have tipped it. But Rochester they held on and got literally one moment. So they did, the plan worked, and they could have it would have been a brutal draw to take for Aurora. But Rochester really made a statement. They will not be easy to play for anybody from now on. They have found like at least the core solidity of that defense, and so they're not going to get 5-0'd, like they did, from Minnesota in the opener.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think that is really exciting to see for them, for Rochester, because you are starting to see like a little bit of an identity now, where you're starting to see like what they're wanting to do, how they're wanting to play together, and they're doing it right. Like they're doing
Yeah.
it really well. So I agree. I think that they didn't create a lot of chances, but
No.
you don't have to, honestly, if you're not giving up a ton of goals. So, so I think that was something that really changed. It was also the first time that Aurora has been tested late in the game.
Yeah.
And that was something that was really interesting for me to see, because I do think Aurora this season has been much more of a first half team.
Yeah.
They've come out firing on all cylinders straight from the first kickoff. They're like intent on scoring goals, but that drops in the second half for sure. And this is the first time that like the 80th minute, the last 10 minutes of the game became really important. And that brings, and especially in a 1-0 game, that brings a totally different style of soccer. It brings different tactics. It brings, gamesmanship
Psychology,
and
the mentality. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And so I think this is the first time we've seen them been tested. And I think they responded well to it. Like they dug it out. They came away with the 3 points. Good learning lesson,
Yeah.
if nothing else, for sure.
They would have, and by the way, player of the match from both sides was Emma Knack, the keeper for Rochester. She has not played college soccer yet, Dani. She just graduated from high school. She's going to, no surprise, she's quality. She's going to South Dakota State, one of the good mid-major programs. And so she'll be fighting to be that next good keeper for them. They were the team that played a literal half and half keeper pairing last year, which is so interesting. But so she really stopped a couple of goals. And to talk a little bit about the Aurora players, it did, Christelle Yewa, Kat Rapp, at least those two had run-ins and shots on goal, direct one-on-ones, and they weren't perfect angles, but Knack made those saves. Talk a little bit about, part of it in terms of offensive production slowing down for Aurora, of course, is heavy rotation. So it's just, you don't have chemistry going through. So basically everyone up front rotated, kind of close to the whole team rotated. So Vienna Benke started in the middle with Adler, who's been playing there a lot. Brenlin Mulaney and Jelena Zabilic were on the wing. Sophie French up top. So clearly,
it was a totally different
trying to figure out where the new pieces can fit together, because she knows where Maya fits up top. She knows Kat can play wherever, but she's finding where these pieces will fit, obviously.
Yeah. Coach Lukic for sure is trying things out. She has been very open about that. I think that she has said, like, you'll continue to see, and I'm very proud of our staff for sticking to the commitment, for like trying players in different places and seeing what works and trying new things. And I do think that lends to a little bit of freedom later in the year, when, let's just say, something happens or some players has way too many minutes on their legs and needs a break. You can shift players around, and that they've been there before. They know how it works. They know how to play in the system, all that stuff. So I think I can see where she's going with that. I can't imagine, though, that as you get into playing teams for a second time, we're going to see the same amount of like shifting around, just because, like what we said, other teams now know what to expect. They've made adjustments. They're going to bring a better team, most likely, in the second game, because they've had to deal with it in the first game. And they've had to make adjustments. So I would imagine you're probably going to start seeing like a more solid roster and a more solid like starting 11 as we get into the back half of the season here. But, you never know.
It's a privilege that they have. With the depth too, because part of it is rotation for keeping people fresh. And then she honestly doesn't know. There's so many different types of players that have come in. And thankfully, I think she does know, if she wants to put out a team where she knows what she's getting, she has enough of the returning pieces and enough of the new pieces where she knows what they have. But one place I think a big positive in this last game was just getting some depth in on defense. So Kelsey, she's still being called Kalfusi in the graphics, but I know, respect to her marriage, Kelsey Steed is started again and looked quality. Didn't face obviously a ton, but that will be a privilege to have 3 starting people you're confident starting at center back. By the way, I don't know exactly where Paula Ten will play either, who's coming back from that experience at CONCACAF qualifying. So I don't know. She's in, but Kelfusi in the center back role, and then Chloe Olsen got to start at right back instead of Kenzie Langdock. So getting the captain Langdock some rest and just getting to see what you had in Olsen at right back. So a little more depth exploration in the back too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think she's looking at it. That starting 11 was almost like all new players outside of Tiana Harris, essentially, who has been just. I think she's like the root. She's the the base of this whole squad, and I think obviously in that game against Rochester, she literally put the whole team on her back, scored the goal, and then also held it down in the back. Like, she was so impressive. She has been extremely impressive this whole season. But I think that game specifically showed like her leadership in being like, I'm going to get it done no matter what it takes. And I don't think there was a lot of other opportunity. Obviously there was opportunities, but that were like, it felt like somebody was taking the lead on it and being like, I'm going to get this done. Whereas like Maya Hansen, I feel like in past games has been the one to do that. So, Cat Rapp as well. So I think those players for me have been just like standout, and Tiana specifically in this one. All that to say, to get back to your point, the back line has been changed a ton. Tiana's holding it down though.
Yeah. When Coach Lukic rotates the way she does, I mean, clearly we can see of one of the new people who has their spot. T has her spot because, I mean, she was a vice captain as well, so you could see it from that. But she's staying in the squad. I did think in the first half, one of the bright spots with Hannah Adler, she kind of would make something from nothing, and she created all the shots that were close to being dangerous. For the most part, I think were coming. So she's just really someone different than, she plays a little bit how Sangmin Cha played, but in that role, but she's a little different in terms of what she does. She's not just holding up, she's also cutting a lot. She's really dynamic, it feels like. So she's been
I would agree with that. She's been fantastic. She has been, I feel like, so consistent and sort of in a way that's like, how do I say, like, she was like a Pierre Lowe back in the day. Like, she would quiet, connected like every single pass, and then all of a sudden would like break through and score. Like, that's how she has been so far. And I think Coach Lukic has mentioned like Hannah Adler has just been one of their most consistent. They know what they can get from her. They can always rely on it. Like, if it's, if they need something to be done, she's going to do it. So I would agree with that assessment.
And I think it goes to the players have mentioned in post-game interviews when we ask old players about the chemistry and the new players, I think it shows, they picked the right players. A lot of people talked to them. I'm sure many, many talented players reached out to this team, but they did a good job of finding, like, Adler, for one, is where you can just see in the early stages, she connects with the best parts of our offense, which are, the wraps, Mariah and Maya, making combinations and cuts, like in the box, deadly little quick 1-2s, and then runs into the corner and cut it back into the box. She just connects with that really well. And, it's like in the 10-0, it's easy to say that, but we've seen it in other places too. And I want to say too, it's kind of funny before we go into a break and talk a little about Dutch Lions. It's a funny feeling because Aurora, they're 3-0 and their goal difference is +20. They haven't given up a goal yet. And yet, because the last game was 1-0, I'm like in a really level place in terms of how I'm thinking of them as a team. And yet, +20.
No.
20-0.
I mean, that's fair. They are performing like heads and above everybody else in this league, I think, and they have been consistently. But I do think we, as fans of Aurora, right, have like very high expectations for them, and we want to see them go all the way. So when they all of a sudden are like, oh, it's a 1-0, it's a closer game, it feels a little tighter. But I will say, yeah, it is good. It's really good. I mean, this is how games should be, honestly. But I will say, I do think that this season has been a real interesting test for Coach Lukic to be able to be like, yes, this strategy is working. We are building out this squad that we want to see. We have like such an amount of talent now. How do we best use that? And that, as a coach, that is such a challenge. Honestly, it's like, it's really difficult to manage your players, to manage like mentalities, mindsets, bodies, and then like a strategy that actually works on the field for the length of a season. So it's been a really fun season to watch so far. It's been cool.
Mm-hmm. That quick break to read an ad from our sponsor, Pentz Homes. This show is brought to you by Pentz Homes. Whether you're buying or selling, or if you're looking to do some projects in your current home, Nate and Lydia can help you find what you need. Need financing for a basement remodel, looking to add a second bath, or even a workspace now that you're working from home? Pentz Homes and their preferred lender, Angie Shearer, with Luminant Financing, can help find the right financing tool for you. Go to pentzhomes.com to learn more, or find them on social media at Pentz Homes. I've been watching your broadcast. I'm trying to match Jake with his good announcer. I want to get my voice nice and rich and full. Like the stadium guys who do the announcement.
He's a pro at that voice.
Are you still? I mean, yeah, Danny, are you getting in? Are you watching highlights, considering going with the bigger goal call? I want you to do the Latin American goal.
Yeah,
full breath, where you take a deep breath and you say, "Go as long as the breath will go." Do it.
I don't think I can do that, to be honest, but I'll tell Jake to start pulling it in for sure.
Yeah. I suppose, maybe he calls it, but it's no. We'll talk. I mean, I would think we're going to see some goals today. We're facing Dutch Lions. We won 4-0 away to them, which that was the first away trip. And Matt was down there getting highlights of that. I'm sure we'll see rotation, right? It seems to be that way where if she's rotating in the away game, we're going to see people. We're going to see Maya Hansen back in. I would expect, like Mariah Wynn, maybe a fullback rotation to the previous game. So, I mean, talk about the mindset, though, because like we said, even though it's plus 20 goals, they're coming off a 1-0 loss where they could have got a crappy draw even at the end.
Yeah.
So the mindset, like the players, do you think?
You mean a win? They're coming off a
1-0 win.
Yeah.
It felt like a loss. That's what a 1-0 win feels like.
I was like, wait, are we talking about that? I got a little confused. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think you probably will see the shift back to, like, here's our mainstay. Because I do feel like you're starting to see, like, here's going to be our starting 11 that are really our reliable starting 11. And then that will start to, maybe it'll shift around in the late season, but I think it will probably stay like the majority of that. So I think we'll see more of that, especially because, it was like getting out a 1-0 win is hard. It is hard. You're having to play a lot of minutes. It's a heavier load. You have to be like way more on than you do in a 10-minute, a 10-0 game when you can like take some breaks. So I do think that it probably was good to use some players that maybe weren't getting as many minutes in that 1-0 game where it's going to be a little bit more effort. And now we'll see them shift back to this mainstay group where it's going to be like, now those players have had a little bit of rest and let's get back to it.
Right.
So I do think that was probably good. But yeah, I mean, the mentality is definitely going to be, we're back at home. We have to perform. We need to come back out, score some goals early again. And I think that this, Nicole and Coach Lukic has not mentioned it as much because she has mentioned, like, we're going to keep scoring goals. But it is not talked about as much that they have not given up any goals. I mean, they're defensively solid. And I think that is because a lot of that defense is happening in their attacking half, in the other team's defensive half. So that's happening really far up the field. Doesn't necessarily feel like defense, right? Yeah. But they are doing a really great job of that. And it's clearly working. So I think that's something that they're going to want to quietly keep as like their secret sort of power of Minnesota Aurora, is not just we're able to score, but we are not giving up any goals.
They work hard on the offensive players work really hard on defense. Maya Hansen, Mariah Wynn is like, she used to play left back at Bemidji State back in the day for the people who follow Equal Time. And they just come at you. So it's clearly a thing. I don't know if it's something you've talked about with Coach Lukic, but she clearly will not play players who won't do that defensive work. Like
for sure.
You have to do it all. And even players who weren't that maybe the strength of their game, like when Morgan Turner was playing last year, that's not as much a strength of her game, but she would put in the work when she'd play and she'd hustle and it still put people under pressure.
100%. I mean, that is something that she has said time and time again, is like, when we lose the ball, probably within 2-3 passes, they're trying to win it back as high up the field as possible. Yeah. And that can create, that can create chances really, really well, because players are already pulled out of positions when they're like, have their own foot on the ball. So it creates like attacking chances without having to really create your own like,
Mhm.
thoughtful build up passes.
Right.
And you can create chances that way. So I think that is definitely a tactic of hers. And she is expecting a ton out of the defensive side of like our attacking half of the field, if that makes sense. Like
Yep.
their responsibility is defense as well, and that, like I said, it doesn't feel like defense because it's happening so far up the field, but they are doing heavy loads on
Yeah.
defense.
A place where depth plays a role as well, because teams that don't rotate can't press in that way for the whole game. And Aurora, sometimes you'll see them slow down because of course you get tired doing that as well. But subbing 7 people, they can get a few in who help plug the gap.
Hmm.
And clearly, I don't know if you have a sense of this, but it seems different than rotation. It seems like definitely in the mode of finding the player in terms of the keeper role, because 3 people having minutes, Taylor Kane maybe would have got a bit more had it not been for a knock. So I don't know if you're curious on your thoughts on that, but it is, and I'm sure a bit of just seeing what she has, because none of these keepers have started a lot of games for her, but a lot of
Yeah.
rotation.
Well, I will say, Coach Lukic did say that, they didn't expect Groutman to have, a 1-0 game where she's having to make like saves in the 90th minute. Like they didn't go into that game expecting that kind of a game for her. In saying that, it's a really, really great thing. And she performed really well in it. She made good decisions in clearing the ball out, when to do that, when to get the team up, when to hold on to it, when to get involved with her own feet and be, sort of the 11th player there. And I think she did a really good job of that. So, for me, keepers go so far beyond just making saves. And there's a lot of nuance to what they have to do. It to the untrained eye, seems like they're just standing back there, but they're involved in the play always and communicating and doing all that. And so I think for her, she's still trying to figure out and giving, these keepers chances to be able to perform and get experience at this level. And I really like seeing that because keepers don't often get changed. You're right
No,
about
no.
that. I mean, it's a very rare thing.
Mhm.
So, for me, I think Coach Lukic is sticking to her commitment to all of her players, saying we're going to get everybody minutes, and she's doing that.
Yeah, I mean, so and for the keepers, it must be exciting because they'll know, even if say she is just rotating to give them 30 minutes. Well, I'll get a 30-minute. I mean, people
Yep.
don't normally even get that. So
Yep.
it's nice to see. And obviously that might have been planned for that game had it not stayed 1-0. If it might have been planned that Bayless Flynn was the backup, so she was rotating who was in the 18. So could have even been plans that if it went well, she would have given Bayless some minutes as well. So I would be surprised if we don't see Bayless in at some point as well, because she just seems committed to giving them a chance, and that's cool. But Bayless, the Montana Grizzly commit, by the way.
She's a youngin', but she's up and coming.
Yeah. Well, and it's all these players that can grow in a year. Like Nicole doesn't see them, or the coaches don't see them much for a whole season. And one of the things that it seems to be a trend is the way that teams travel, of course, and part of it is just the cost, right? It's expensive to travel all the way from Chicago to the Twin Cities with in a full coach bus and everything else. But we do notice it over last year and this year. Teams travel with less players. They travel with tight resources, and so the away games are different, but I wonder your thoughts on that too, because we saw, I don't know if it really was a role with Rochester. They're a close team. I think that was more, it was their first game and then we caught them when they're in season. But I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. Chicago Dutch Lions, we beat them 4-0. So I don't know if you think, it seems like sometimes, I don't know if this is it, that a team accepts they're taking the L when they come to TCO. I don't know. I
hope not. I hope not,
because,
I mean, the game starts 0-0, but I do think it is harder to play away. There's no doubt about that, especially when you're playing in an atmosphere that's really like new and uncomfortable and, flashy and bright like Aurora has. So that's going to be new to all these players. So I think that is a piece, but I do think that's kind of like the unicorn situation around Aurora. It's not the case when you go travel to, say, Green Bay or something. In saying that, I mean, they're not traveling all players. So I think, when you look normally at teams where they're traveling just a shorter distance, like RKC, against Green Bay, it's a great example.
Yeah,
They traveled
I was shocked
probably a
by
totally
that.
different team. Yeah. I think everybody was, honestly. Like, we didn't know what to expect from that, but lo and behold, you know, that result came out something totally different than what we all expected it to be. And yeah, and I think that goes to say, like, every team has a chance at any point, especially when they're able to, like, make adjustments as they start to figure out, like, what are we about? Who are we? How are we going to play together? How do I play next to you and you play next to her? And you know, all this stuff, and everybody's starting to figure that out. So I think you will start to see some different scores in the second half of the season. And you will start to see different scores as teams start to play home and away because they travel differently, for sure. It also is it's harder when you're traveling. It's harder on your body. You have to eat, you know, away, something that you don't normally eat. You sleep in a different bed. You're cramped in a car, you know, all this stuff. It has impacts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so Aurora will be, I mean, I think they're going to be hungry after this 1-0 loss. I'm sure one thing they didn't
win.
It's literally because I typed it and then I'm going to delete it even in case I look at it again. Here we are. I'm trying to get them motivated, Dani. This is a loss. We're trying to get them motivated, but no, they didn't score a goal in open play, which I think that might be the only. I think last year they had the 1-1 draw with Green Bay. I think the goal was open play. It was a free kick actually. Shelby Hapeo hit it. That was the opening goal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But, so that was the last time they didn't have a goal from open play. But yeah. But yeah, in referencing what Dani said, so RKC, who Aurora beat 10-0 last week, they traveled really light. They only had 13 players, so it just turned into kind of a tough game. They went to Green Bay, they were second last year in the league, and they won 2-1. And so I was like, okay. And also I should say, to the Dutch Lions' credit, you know, earlier this year they lost 1-2 to Chicago City, who were the third best team. They had a winning record last year, so clearly. Not a team you're going to take lightly, but I'm sure Aurora will feel confident. Speaking of that in the standings, Dani, so the way the playoffs work this year, 16 teams, there's there's more coastal teams in terms of the heart of the country, in the heartland and the Great Lakes. And then it's whatever the one that like Louisville and North Carolina team we're in. 4 teams will make it to those totals. So between us and the Great Lakes, one wild card will get it. So just at this point, it's really early, but there's kind of a trend of points per game where both Green Bay and Chicago City look like they're in a good spot. And then honestly, if any team got really hot, they could also, you know, still climb up. It's early, but that would be exciting. And so that will be some sort of regional opponent between like an Indy 11, Racing Louisville, teams like that. A bunch of teams in Michigan, but Aurora obviously looking good so far, but a lot of games to go. Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention too, Dani, is I don't know if people have seen, but we have equal time gear. We got hats.
Yeah, I saw. Jerseys. It's fire.
My one and people should go see this. We're donating some of it to a really an awesome cause, especially in Pride Month, to a great former Gopher soccer players transition funding. And they're just a wonderful player, wonderful person. So part of what we get from these will go to that. The jersey this is the one thing Matt did all this work. 100%. The only thing I did, I was like, do you have any ideas? I'm like, I don't know. Olive and York are making it. Maybe they'll just have an idea. But I was the one who said, well, what if we put every women's team in small font across it? And so
I love that.
It's a charcoal shirt where all the college teams, all the summer league teams are all written on there. So yeah, people should go check that out. And they can also buy snapback hats. So I'm guessing
they're both fire. Go check them out for sure.
At least a couple dads.
Getting my hands on some.
Yeah, at least a couple dads. I know we're getting some for us to be able to wear around the stadium. So yeah. And then I wanted to ask you, Dani, because we were talking about I was thinking about NWSL this morning. Sydney Leroux made her. Did you see her make her return?
Oh my God! Of course I did. Sid, I love you.
Yeah.
She's one of my favorite people in the whole world. I don't know if you saw the video of her son. Oh,
Cassius, he's probably like 7, right? And so whoever's hanging out with her son and daughter, probably her grandma or her mom or someone is.
No, I think she tagged somebody in. I think it was
maybe a friend or someone not in the 18 or something. But but they're watching, and Cassius is watching because Sydney Leroux's come back from a long injury, or fully in crutches and surgery, and she scores the goal. And Cassius is watching, and he's like a 7-year-old boy, and he doesn't really want to be on camera because he's crying because he's so proud of his mom. And the person's like, Cassius, look. And he's like, what? No. Like, because you can tell he's crying. And just
melt my heart. It was a moment. I hope, I mean, she will never forget it, but it was incredible. I'm so proud of her. And it's a long recovery. Injury is hard. She's moved teams since then, you know, so it's been it was cool to see.
Especially, I mean, like being it's like being a single mom playing in you know, you think of like what Jess McDonald, you know, and it's that's crazy to think of, you know, they're bringing the baby to U.S. national team camp, like it's you know.
And her kids are amazing. Cassius specifically is like grown up on the field. He's a little baller himself. So.
Those videos of them playing are great. I really love, like, she'll take shots on him and she takes a real shot. He's like, too hard, mommy. And knock his face off. But she still has to show that she's got it. So awesome.
Very competitive.
Yeah, no, that was very heartwarming to watch. It was great.
Yes.
But for people, and also people know this Sunday when Aurora plays away, I'll just let folks know. You definitely can come watch it at the Blackheart, but also Matt will be on the ground in Chicago, I believe, because he's just going to all the away games. And shout out to Minnesota.
Doing his job.
And last thing I will say, Dani, is shout out to Maddie Darlene. She's the Minnesotan who is playing on the U.S. Under-20. She scored 4 goals, 3 goals in one game, another goal in the game that needed to qualify. So in the semifinals of the tournament, crazy. She's going to be back at UNC. Just blue blooding it up this fall. So we like to keep track. But Matt, I will say, and also we'll say it on here, thank you to Paula Ten and her family. They gave Matt a tour around the Dominican Republic, and they're also like, you probably shouldn't have been walking around so much. the only white guy in that part of Santo Domingo, I think. But it was he had a blast, and he had a lot of good content. So
that's great.
All right, we're gonna have a great game tonight, Dani. I'm excited to see that your game day fit, and you know, hopefully another win. But congrats! Hats off to Rochester for being wonderful hosts of Aurora, and to all the fans. That was really fun. I bet Green Bay, even in some of these other games, we're gonna see. You know, even the first game at Dutch Lions, I think there were 50 Aurora fans there who traveled.
Yeah,
or
I love that. I love that. Keep showing up.
Have a good day, Dani.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.